What if your memory problems, your brain fog, your low mood, what if none of that is actually coming from your brain? What if the real problem is happening 2 feet lower? In March 2026, researchers at Stanford University announced something that genuinely changed how I think about aging. They discovered a specific 3-step pathway through which gut bacteria silence the memory center of the brain in older animals. And when they fixed the gut, the brain came back, almost completely. That's not a metaphor. That's peer-reviewed science published last month. Before we get to the exact action steps, there is one more thing you need to know about the cardiovascular data, because this is where it gets genuinely alarming. A 2025 observational study published in Circulation showed that eating windows of less than 8 hours, OMAD, and aggressive 16.8 adherence were associated with significantly elevated cardiovascular mortality risk in adults over 50. The hazard ratio was 2.35, meaning these individuals were more than twice as likely to die from cardiovascular causes. Separate research in Science Translational Medicine found that near isocaloric time-restricted eating, same calories, just compressed window, shifted circadian clocks, but did not improve cardiometabolic health in women. This matters because the assumption that compressing your eating window is automatically beneficial for heart health is simply not supported by the current evidence for older adults. The relationship is dose-dependent, and you can absolutely pass the point of diminishing returns. Point 1. Your gut is, quite literally, a second brain, not a metaphor, an actual neural network. There are roughly 500 million neurons lining your gastrointestinal tract. 500 million. That is more neurons than in your spinal cord. Scientists call this the enteric nervous system, and it has been evolving for hundreds of millions of years longer than the brain in your skull. It communicates constantly with your brain through the vagus nerve, a long winding highway that runs from your brainstem all the way down to your intestines. And here is what most people get completely backwards. The traffic on that highway is mostly one way. About 90% of the signals travel from your gut up to your brain, not the other way around. Your gut is not waiting for instructions from above. It is sending instructions. Constantly. Every single day. Point 2. The Stanford breakthrough, and why it's a genuinely big deal. Published in March 2026, the study identified exactly how aging gut bacteria hijack your brain. Here's the 3-step mechanism. Step 1. As you age, a specific bacteria called Parabacteroides goldsteinii increases in abundance in your gut. Step 2. This bacteria produces medium-chain fatty acids that trigger inflammation in the myeloid immune cells lining your intestines. Step 3, and this is the critical part, that inflammation disrupts the vagus nerve signal to the hippocampus, which is your brain's memory formation center. The hippocampus essentially goes quiet, and without those incoming signals, it stops forming new memories efficiently. What's remarkable is what happened when researchers tested the reverse. Young mice given old microbiomes developed memory problems within weeks. Germ-free older mice, raised without any gut bacteria, maintained sharp cognition. And when researchers stimulated the vagus nerve directly in cognitively impaired older mice, those animals recovered memory function to young animal levels. The lead researcher described it as a kind of remote control for the brain. Fix the gut signal, and you can turn memory back on. So why do these foods hit harder after 50? Two things happen simultaneously as you age. First, insulin sensitivity naturally declines. Your muscle cells, the primary site where glucose gets burned, start shrinking if you're not actively preserving them. Less muscle means less metabolic capacity. The margin for error gets smaller every decade. Second, your gut microbiome becomes less diverse. Beneficial bacteria that regulate inflammation and help metabolize food efficiently are easier to knock down and harder to rebuild. So the same bowl of cereal that barely moved the needle at 35 can spike your blood sugar significantly at 55. This isn't pessimism, it's biology. And here's the good news. It means dietary changes work faster and more dramatically in this age group, not less. The DIRECT trial, published in The Lancet Diabetes and Endocrinology, followed people with type 2 diabetes for 5 full years. With dietary intervention and weight management, 13% were still in complete remission at year 5. No medication. That's not a rounding error. That's diet reversing a diagnosis that millions of people believe is permanent. Now let's talk about the dementia connection specifically. NIH research shows that people who sleep 6 hours or less per night in their 50s and 60s are 30% more likely to develop dementia later in life. The mechanism is the glymphatic failure we described earlier. Beta amyloid accumulates, tau protein becomes misfolded, and the neuroinflammation that follows sets the stage for Alzheimer's pathology. A meta-analysis published in Science in 2025 synthesized data from dozens of longitudinal studies and found that sleep disorders, including insomnia, sleep apnea, and disrupted circadian rhythm, significantly increase dementia risk. Sleep apnea alone, which affects up to 30% of people over 60, causes repeated oxygen drops during the night that independently damage brain tissue. If you snore heavily, wake gasping, or your partner notices you stop breathing, get tested. An untreated apnea diagnosis is the most dangerous sleep problem you may not know you have. Now, before we get to point 5, which is where this gets genuinely actionable, I want to ask you something. Have you noticed more brain fog or memory slips in the last few years? Not dramatic, just little things. Names, words, where you put things. Drop a yes or no in the comments right now. I read every single one. And if you haven't subscribed yet, do it now. New videos every Monday and Thursday. Point 5. Short-chain fatty acids. Your gut's most powerful brain protection tool. Here's something that genuinely doesn't get enough attention. When beneficial gut bacteria ferment dietary fiber, they produce compounds called short-chain fatty acids, SCFAs. The 3 main ones are butyrate, propionate, and acetate. These aren't just metabolic byproducts. They are active brain protection agents. SCFAs can cross the blood-brain barrier and directly reduce neuroinflammation. They bind to receptors in the brain that regulate mood and cognitive function. And critically, they maintain the physical integrity of the blood-brain barrier itself. A 2025 study in PubMed found that SCFA supplementation notably enhanced blood-brain barrier integrity in primates with gut dysbiosis. Think of the blood-brain barrier as your brain's security fence. SCFAs are the concrete it's made from. And what depletes them? Ultra-processed food tops the list, followed by overuse of antibiotics, chronic stress, and simply not eating enough fiber. The average adult over 50 in the U.S. eats less than half the recommended daily fiber intake. Half. Point 6. Fermented foods and the diversity dividend. In 2021, a landmark Stanford trial published in Cell, Host, and Microbe ran for 10 weeks and found something striking. Participants who ate a high fermented food diet, yogurt, kefir, kimchi, sauerkraut, kombucha, showed a significant increase in microbiome diversity and a measurable reduction in 19 different inflammatory markers, including IL-6 and IL-12B. Both of those are directly linked to neuroinflammation and cognitive decline. The comparison group, who ate a high-fiber diet alone, did not see the same diversity gains. Now, I want to be honest with you here. Most of the strongest gut-brain research is still in animal models. Human clinical trials are catching up, but they're not fully there yet. That said, the mechanistic evidence is solid, and the dietary interventions have very low downside risk. Eating more fermented foods is not a gamble. The question is, are you eating any? Most people over 50 aren't. Point 7. The gut-brain protocol. What actually works? Let me give you something concrete. Based on the current evidence, here's what I'd prioritize if I were over 50 and wanted to protect my brain through my gut. First, eat 30 or more different plant foods per week. That number sounds daunting, but it includes herbs, spices, nuts, and seeds. A sprinkle of flaxseed, a handful of walnuts, a dash of cumin, those all count. Diversity of plants drives diversity of bacteria. Second, add 1 or 2 servings of fermented food every single day. Kefir is the easiest starting point. Plain yogurt with live active cultures is almost as good. Third, cut ultra-processed food significantly. This is the single biggest lever for reducing dysbiosis after 50. Fourth, consider a multi-strain probiotic. A 2025 systematic review covering 34 clinical trials found that lactobacillus and bifidobacterium strains improved memory, attention, and executive function scores in people with mild cognitive impairment. Look specifically for Lactobacillus rhamnosus and Bifidobacterium longum on the label. And fifth, manage chronic stress. The gut-brain axis runs in both directions. Elevated cortisol directly damages the intestinal lining and suppresses the beneficial bacteria you need most. Exercise, quality sleep, and stress management are not just mental health strategies. They are gut health strategies. The gut-brain axis is not a fringe idea anymore. It's one of the fastest-moving areas in neuroscience and aging research, and the 2026 Stanford findings have moved the conversation firmly into mainstream science. What this tells us is that brain health after 50 is not just about brain training or supplements or even sleep, though all of those matter. It starts in the gut. So here's my question for you. Which of these 7 points surprised you the most? Was it the serotonin statistic, the Stanford mechanism, or the fermented food data? Drop your answer in the comments. I genuinely read every single one, and I'll pin the best response. And if you want to go deeper on brain health after 50,